The night begins with the glitter of chandeliers and the murmur of wealth. Laughter spills from the grand ballroom of the luxury hotel, where white guests in polished suits and shimmering gowns toast to their fortunes. To the outside eye, it looks perfect in evening carved out of glamour. But behind the smiles and clinking glasses, a different story unfolds. Maya, a young black waitress, moves quietly between tables. Her black uniform is pressed, her tray steady, her posture trained to be invisible. She carries cocktails with the grace of someone who has learned to disappear in plain sight. A woman at one of the tables raises her empty glass without even looking up. "Another one," she says, her tone sharp, dismissive, like she's speaking to a servant, not a human being. Maya nods politely. "Of course, ma'am." She turns quickly before her expression cracks. The smile she wears is not her own, it's the mask she has perfected. She weaves through the crowd, careful not to bump anyone. Yet still, whispers follow her. "Don't spill it this time," a man chuckles to his friends. They laugh under their breath, loud enough for Maya to hear. She does not respond. She has learned silence is safer. At the bar, she places her tray down, steadying her breath. The bartender glances at her with sympathy. "Rough crowd tonight." Maya forces a shrug. "Just another shift." But her eyes flicker with something else, something she buries deep. She returns to the guests, her tray heavy with glasses. The air smells of expensive perfume and cigars. She moves like a shadow among them, every step rehearsed, every gesture precise. Yet no matter how perfectly she serves, she remains invisible until it is convenient to notice her faults. As she sets a drink on the table, a man smirks. "Careful now," he says loudly. "These carpets cost more than her paycheck." Laughter erupts around him. Maya's face flushes, but she keeps her composure. She bows her head slightly. "Enjoy your drink, sir." Her voice is soft, steady, trained not to shake. Inside, though her chest tightens, every cruel word chips away at her, yet she refuses to break. She has bills to pay. She has pride to protect. The camera of our imagination follows her as she steps outside onto the patio. For just a moment, she allows herself a deep breath of night air. The pool glimmers nearby, its water reflecting the golden lights of the hotel. She stares at it, almost wishing she could sink into its silence and disappear. But the sound of laughter pulls her back. A group of young guests are watching her, whispering, pointing, already plotting something cruel. She senses it but says nothing. She adjusts her tray, straightens her back, and walks toward them anyway. Because that is her job. The night is far from over, and Maya knows the shadows will only grow darker. Still, she walks in, unaware that her dignity will soon be tested in the most humiliating way imaginable, and that this night, which began with silence and cruelty, will end with a twist none of them could have ever foreseen. The night has grown louder now. Music pulses from hidden speakers, the rhythm echoing across the hotel courtyard. The pool glitters beneath strings of golden lights, reflecting the laughter of guests who crowd its edges with champagne flutes in hand. It looks like a picture out of a magazine, perfect, glamorous, untouchable. And into this scene steps Maya. Her uniform is damp with sweat from hours of work, but she keeps her chin up as she carries a tray filled with sparkling drinks. Her steps are careful, steady. Her eyes remain lowered, as if making herself smaller might keep her safe. But safety is not waiting for her tonight. A group of young guests lounging near the pool notice her approaching. Their eyes narrow, then shift into mocking smiles. One of them, a tall man in a white suit, nudges his friend. "Here she comes," he whispers, loud enough for her to hear. The friend chuckles. "Try not to trip, sweetheart. These drinks are worth more than your month's salary." Their laughter is sharp, meant to cut. Maya swallows the sting, forcing a polite nod. "Your drinks, gentlemen." She places the glasses carefully on their table, her hands steady despite the tightness in her chest. But the men aren't finished. "Tell me," the one in the white suit says, tilting his glass, "do they pay you extra for smiling? Because you're not doing it very well." The group bursts into laughter again, the sound bouncing off the water. Maya presses her lips together, her silence her only shield. She turns to leave, but another voice calls out, "Wait, come here a second." A woman in a glittering dress leans back in her chair, her eyes cold and mischievous. "You're moving too slow. Maybe if you had a little motivation." She gestures toward the pool, her meaning clear. Maya stiffens, gripping her tray. I really should get back inside." But the woman's friends are already circling her with words, each sharper than the last. "What's the matter? Don't like a little fun? Don't be so uptight. It's just a joke. Yeah, lighten up." The laughter grows louder, pressing in around her. Maya's heart pounds in her ears. She backs away slightly, her shoes scraping against the tiled floor. Then it happens. The man in the white suit stands, smirking. In one swift motion, he steps forward and shoves her shoulder. The world tilts. Maya gasps, the tray slipping from her hands, glasses shattering midair. That in splash, that water engulfs her with a violent chill. The crowd gasps, some covering their mouths, others laughing openly. The sound of shattering glass echoes in her mind as she struggles beneath the surface, the weight of humiliation pressing heavier than the water itself. She breaks through the surface, gasping, her uniform clinging to her skin. Her hair drips, her hands tremble. For a moment, the world is silent. And then the laughter returns. Louder, crueler, relentless. She actually fell in. Guess she's finally useful cleaning the pool. The group roars, pointing at her like she is an object, not a person. Maya grips the edge of the pool, her chest heaving. She wants to vanish, but she cannot. Slowly, painfully, she pulls herself up. Water streams down her face, blurring the tears that fight to surface. She stands there, dripping, humiliated. Around her, no one steps forward. No manager, no coworker, not a single guest speaks up. The silence of their indifference cuts deeper than the laughter. Her eyes dart across the crowd, searching, hoping for a shred of kindness. But she finds only turned faces and smug smiles. She realizes then, in this place, she is utterly alone. The woman in the glittering dress smirks. Guess she can't take a joke after all. More laughter follows, echoing like thunder in Maya's ears. She lowers her gaze, wraps her arms around herself, and begins to walk a waitstep, leaving a wet trail across the polished stone floor. Her dignity feels shattered, scattered like the broken glasses sinking at the bottom of the pool. And though she doesn't know it yet, this night of cruelty has just lit the spark of a storm that will change everything, because someone has seen someone who loves her, and his anger will not be silent for long. The courtyard is still ringing with cruel laughter when the sound of hurried footsteps cuts through it. David has arrived. He freezes at the edge of the pool, his eyes locking on Maya. She stands soaked and trembling, water dripping from her hair, her uniform clinging to her skin. Her arms are wrapped around herself, her head lowered in shame. For a moment, time itself seems to stop. David's chest tightens. The woman he loves, the one who has stood by him through every struggle, is standing there, humiliated, broken in front of strangers. And then the fury ignites. He storms forward, his voice echoing across the courtyard. What did you just do to her? The guests who pushed Maya laugh nervously, exchanging smirks. The tall man in the white suit shrugs casually. Relax, man. It was just a joke. A joke. David's tone sharpens like a blade. You shoved my wife into a pool, and you call that a joke? His fists clench at his sides. His jaw tightens. The rage in his eyes silences the laughter for the first time that night. Maya reaches for him gently, her voice trembling. David, please, just let it go. But he shakes his head, unable to look away from the group that mocked her. No, Maya, not this time. One of the women smirks, lifting her glass. She should be grateful we didn't fire her ourselves. She works here, doesn't she? David turns sharply toward her. Grateful. His voice trembles with restrained anger. Grateful for being treated like she's less than human. The guests shift uncomfortably, but none of them apologize. And then the hotel manager appears, striding quickly across the courtyard, his face red with forced calm. What's going on here? He demands, looking more annoyed than concerned. David steps forward. What's going on? Your guests assaulted my wife, and all of you stood by and laughed. The manager raises his hands as though David is the problem. Sir, I need you to lower your voice. You're disturbing the other guests. David's eyes widen in disbelief. Lower my voice. My wife was humiliated in front of all of you, and I'm disturbing the peace. The manager's tone grows colder. If your wife cannot handle the pressures of working here, perhaps she's not the right fit for this establishment. And if you continue to cause a scene, I'll have security escort you both out. Maya flinches at those words. She looks at David, tears shimmering in her eyes. Please, don't make it worse. Her plea is quiet, but David hears the years behind it, the years of swallowing pain, of hiding tears, of pretending the cruelty didn't hurt. His hands tremble, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of holding himself back. He takes a slow breath, his voice low but steady. You want me to calm down? He steps closer to the manager. Fine, I'll calm down, but listen carefully. What happened here tonight will not be forgotten. The guests snicker, one muttering under his breath, empty threats. David's gaze snaps toward them. Laugh while you can. You won't be laughing for long. The courtyard falls quiet. For the first time, the laughter dies completely. Something about the way David speaks, controlled, sharp, certain, sends a chill through the air. Maya tugs at his arm. David, please, let's just go. He looks at her, his anger softening into sorrow as he sees the pain in her eyes. Gently, he wraps his jacket around her shoulders, shielding her from the stairs. All right, sweetheart, we're leaving. He takes her hand and begins to walk her out, but not before turning back one last time. His voice is calm, almost a calm. This isn't over. And with those words, he leads Maya away from the glittering lights and cruel laughter, his fury simmering just beneath the surface. A storm has been lit inside him, and soon, the very people who laughed at Maya will learn what it means to face the consequences of cruelty. The night should have ended when David walked Maya out of the courtyard, but the humiliation followed them inside. Soaked, shivering, and wrapped in David's jacket, Maya is ushered into the manager's office. The walls are lined with gold-framed certificates, a polished desk gleaming under the soft light. But instead of comfort, the room feels like a trap. The manager closes the door behind them, his expression stiff. Sit down, he orders, as though they are the ones in trouble. David doesn't sit. He stands tall behind Maya, his arms crossed, his glare fixed. We're not here for your orders. We're here for an apology. The manager forces a thin smile, dripping with insincerity. An apology? For what exactly? David's voice rises. For your guests, humiliating my wife in front of everyone. For laughing while she nearly drowned. The manager sighs, feigning patience. Sir, let's not exaggerate. From what I heard, Maya may have provoked the situation. Guests don't act out without reason. Maya's head snaps up. Her voice cracks. Provoked? They shoved me into the pool. The manager's eyes narrow, his tone cold. Perhaps your attitude played a role. You've been told before, Maya, to keep a pleasant demeanor. Guests pay for luxury here, not unpleasantness. David takes a step forward, his fists clenching. You're blaming her? After what they did? Lower your tone, sir, the manager snaps. This is a respectable establishment. If you cause further disruption, I'll have security escort you out. As for Maya, he looks directly at her now, his words sharp enough to cut. Consider this a final warning. One more incident, and you no longer work here. The silence that follows is heavy. Maya's hands tremble in her lap. Her lips part, but no words come out. David kneels beside her, his voice softer now. Sweetheart, don't listen to this. You did nothing wrong. Finally, Maya breaks. Tears spill down her cheeks, her voice trembling as the truth pours out. This isn't the first time, David. They've mocked me before. They've made comments, whispered behind my back. Sometimes the staff joins them, and I stay quiet because we need the money. Because I thought if I just worked harder, they'd stop. David closes his eyes for a moment, his chest tightening with rage and sorrow. He lifts her chin gently, forcing her to look at him. You should never have to endure this. Not here, not anywhere. The manager clears his throat, impatient. If you two are finished, I suggest you leave quietly. This conversation is over. David rises slowly, his glare burning into the man behind the desk. His voice is calm, but every syllable carries weight. No, this conversation has only just begun. The manager shifts uncomfortably, but David doesn't press further. Instead, he turns back to Maya, draping his arm protectively around her. We're done here, he says firmly. Come on, Maya, we don't belong in this place. As they walk out of the office, Maya leans against him, her sobs muffled in his chest. David holds her tighter, his jaw set, his eyes burning with quiet fire, because deep down, he already knows this hotel will soon learn what true respect looks like. The drive home was quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on the chest like heavy stone. The rain tapped softly against the car windows, blurring the city lights into streaks of gold and red. Maya sat in the passenger seat, her damp uniform clinging to her skin, the humiliation of the evening still fresh in every shiver. David kept his eyes on the road, his jaw locked, his knuckles pale against the steering wheel. He didn't need to ask how she was feeling, he already knew. When they finally reached their small but warm apartment, Maya hesitated at the door. Her body was inside, but her spirit felt left behind at that hotel pool. David set down his briefcase and turned toward her. Maya, he said gently, sit with me. They settled onto the couch, the soft glow of a single lamp spilling over them. For a long moment, she stared at her trembling hands. Then, in a voice raw with pain, she finally spoke. David, this isn't the first time. His head snapped toward, her eyes narrowing. What do you mean? He asked, though deep down he dreaded the answer. Maya swallowed hard, her eyes glassy. I've been insulted before, called names, ignored, mocked, sometimes even by the very people I serve every day. I kept it quiet because I needed the job. I thought if I just stayed strong, if I just smiled through it, it would stop. But tonight, her voice cracked. Tonight was different. Tonight, they broke me. Her words lingered in the air like shards of glass. David's chest tightened. He reached out, taking her cold hands into his. His touch was steady, grounding her trembling. You should never have to swallow that kind of pain, he whispered, his voice steady but burning with restrained fury. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity, and I will never let anyone treat you otherwise again. Maya looked at him, her tears spilling freely now. All I've ever wanted, she said softly, is a place where people feel welcome. A little restaurant where no one is too rich or too poor to belong. Where no one has to look over their shoulder, wondering if they'll be judged. Where the food is made with love, and people leave with smiles, not scars. She smiled faintly through her tears, but it was fragile, as though the dream itself was too delicate to survive the world. David's eyes softened, but beneath that calm surface flickered something else, determination. Maya, he said firmly, that dream of yours, it doesn't have to stay a dream. Her breath caught. She studied him, unsure if he was serious. You don't understand, she whispered. That kind of place, it takes money, influence, power. We don't have that. David leaned closer, his voice lowering to a vow. You don't know the half of what we have. I've been patient, quiet, building, watching. Tonight showed me everything I needed to see. And I promise you, Maya, I have the power to change this. For you, for us, for everyone who's ever been treated the way you were. Maya's heart raced. She wanted to believe him, but doubt had a grip on her soul. "What are you saying, David?" He met her gaze with eyes that no longer wavered. "I'm saying this ends now. The cruelty, the prejudice, the humiliation, I won't let them decide your worth anymore. From this moment on, everything changes." For the first time that night, Maya felt something stirring within her hope. Fragile, uncertain, but undeniable. She searched his face, seeing not just her husband, but a man carrying the weight of justice on his shoulders. The silence stretched again, but it was no longer heavy. It was alive, vibrating with possibility. Maya leaned into him, resting her head on his chest. His heartbeat was steady, a rhythm she had always trusted. "I believe you," she whispered. "I don't know how, but I believe you." David wrapped his arms around her, his voice calm but firm. "You don't need to know how. Just know that I'll do it. For you, for the life you've always deserved." The night drew on, the rain outside softening into a lull. Maya's tears finally slowed, her breathing steadying in the safety of his embrace. And though she could not see it yet, the course of their lives had already begun to shift. Because behind closed doors, in the quiet of their living room, a decision was made, one that would soon shake the very foundation of the hotel that had humiliated her. And as Maya drifted into uneasy sleep against David's shoulder, his eyes stayed open, fixed on the darkness ahead. There was no turning back now. Sometimes the quietest men carry the loudest storms inside them. And tonight, as David sat at his desk in the dim light of their apartment, the storm finally began to take shape. Stacks of papers lay spread before him, ledgers, contracts, and balance sheets. But to David, these weren't just numbers. They were weapons, tools, proof of years spent building something far greater than anyone around him had ever realized. Maya stirred softly in the other room, her sleep still fragile from the night's humiliation. David glanced at her door, his expression softening. Then, with a deep breath, he turned back to the documents. This was no ordinary man. David Johnson, the quiet husband everyone assumed was just another hardworking professional, had a secret. He was the founder of several successful companies, logistics, real estate, even a stake in a tech firm quietly rising in value. His investments stretched across states, disguised under holding groups and shell companies. Few knew his name in the spotlight, and that was exactly how he wanted it. "Let them underestimate me," he often told himself. "Power is sharper when no one sees it coming." But tonight, for the first time, he was ready to bring that hidden power into the light. The next morning, Maya found him in the living room, papers spread like a battlefield. She paused in the doorway, her robe pulled tight, eyes still swollen from the night before. "David, what is all this?" He looked up, his expression calm but unshakable. "It's our future, Maya." She frowned, stepping closer. "I don't understand." David pushed a folder toward her. Inside were documents, proof of ownerships, financial statements, property deeds. Maya's eyes widened as she scanned them. You own all this." David nodded. "For years, I've built quietly. I never wanted the spotlight, never wanted to parade wealth. But I've prepared for a moment when it would matter. And last night, Maya, that moment arrived." Her hands trembled as she clutched the folder. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice softened. "Because I wanted you to love me for who I was, not for what I had. But now, I need you to see the truth. You are not married to an ordinary man. You are married to someone who can fight back, someone who can change this." Maya sank onto the couch, overwhelmed. The humiliation of last night still stung, but now it was mixed with shock, disbelief, and a faint flicker of hope. David crouched beside her, taking her hands gently. "You told me your dream, a place where no one feels small, a place of dignity. That dream is possible, Maya, and I have the means to make it real." She searched his eyes, her voice breaking. "You mean, you can buy the hotel?" A slow, determined smile spread across his face. "Not just buy it, transform it. Strip away the rot and rebuild it as a place where respect is the foundation. A place worthy of you." Her lips parted in awe, her mind racing. For years, she had carried her dreams silently, never daring to believe it could leave the safety of her imagination. And now here was her husband, revealing that he had been preparing for this very possibility all along. But David's revelation wasn't just about wealth. It was about resolve. He remembered his own past, the boardrooms where he'd been ignored, the investors who looked through him because of his skin, the subtle rejections disguised as polite smiles. He had learned to play the long game, to keep his power hidden until the right moment came. And last night, watching Maya stand soaked and humiliated while the hotel staff turned against her, that moment finally came. He would not let it pass. "Maya," David said, his voice steady, "they think they broke you, but they've only awakened me. And when I move, I don't stop." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not born of pain. They were born of something else, belief. For the first time in years, Maya allowed herself to smile. Small, fragile, but real. "Then let's do it, David. Let's make them see who we really are." He pulled her close, holding her against his chest. The storm inside him had found its purpose. Behind the curtain of his quiet life, the world had no idea what power he truly held. But soon, they would. And as the first light of dawn spilled through their window, one truth became clear. Humiliation was about to turn into triumph, because the secret power of David was no longer a secret, and its first target was the very hotel that had dared to humiliate his wife. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, moving in silence until the world has no choice but to notice. That morning, while the hotel guests lounged by the pool as if nothing had happened, David was already in motion. His phone lit up with calls, bankers, attorneys, brokers. Each conversation carried a precise command, each instruction delivered with the calm authority of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. Wire the funds, schedule the meeting, have the contracts prepared. On the other end, professionals scrambled to keep pace. The irony was sharp. The hotel's owners, wealthy but careless, had no idea what storm was headed their way. For months, they had been entertaining the idea of selling. The property was profitable, yes, but maintenance costs were rising, and the owners were distracted by other ventures. When David's team approached with a generous offer, they didn't hesitate. To them, this was just another transaction. To David, it was justice disguised as business. Later that afternoon, David sat in a sleek office tower, glass windows stretching high above the city. Across the table, the hotel's representatives leaned forward, reviewing the paperwork. They smiled, impressed by the ease of the deal. It's rare to see a transaction of this scale move so quickly, one of them remarked. David returned the smile, though his eyes betrayed nothing. When something is worth acquiring, hesitation only wastes time. Pens moved across paper. Contracts were signed. Hands were shaken. And just like that, the hotel, the very place where Maya had been humiliated, was his. Back home, Maya paced nervously. She still didn't know the details of what David was planning. All she knew was that his eyes carried a fire she hadn't seen before. When he finally walked through the door, briefcase in hand, she rushed to him. "David, what did you do?" He set the case on the table, slowly opening it. Inside lay the freshly signed contracts, the ink barely dry. Maya froze, her hands covering her mouth. "Is this?" David nodded. "It's ours. Every brick, every wall, every key. That hotel belongs to us now." Her knees nearly gave out as she sank into the nearest chair. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow this time, but of disbelief. "David, I don't know what to say." He knelt beside her, taking her hand firmly. "Say nothing. Just know that their laughter ends today. No one humiliates you and walks away untouched." Meanwhile, at the hotel, life went on as if nothing had changed. Guests continued to sip cocktails by the pool. Staff bustled through the halls, unaware that the signatures David carried in his briefcase had shifted the ground beneath their feet. The arrogant guests who shoved Maya still lounged, smug and comfortable, never imagining that the man they mocked had just become their landlord. But soon, they would know. That night, David stood by the window of their apartment, staring out at the glittering skyline. His reflection stared back, calm, resolute, unstoppable. Maya approached quietly, slipping her arms around his waist. "Do you ever get scared, David, of all this power?" He placed his hand over hers, squeezing gently. "Power isn't for fear, Maya. Power is for protection. And now, I'll protect you in ways they'll never forget." The deal was sealed. The hotel was his, and the stage was set. But David wasn't done. He wasn't interested in secret ownership. He wanted a reveal, a dramatic unveiling that would leave the guests, the staff, and especially the arrogant manager gasping for air. And as the night deepened, one thought burned bright in his mind. Tomorrow, the world would finally learn who truly held the keys. The lobby doors swing open, heads turn, conversations pause mid-sentence. Maya and David step inside the same hotel that had once left her broken. But this time, her shoulders are straighter, her steps steadier. Beside her, David walks with calm authority. Every stride measured, every glance controlled. Whispers ripple through the air. "That's them. The troublemakers are back. Why would they dare return?" Some of the staff smirk, others roll their eyes. To them, Maya was the waitress who couldn't take a joke, and David, the angry husband who didn't know his place. None of them suspect the truth. The concierge leans over the counter, voice dripping with disdain. "Can I help you?" His pause is deliberate, as if the word help doesn't apply to people like them. David's gaze doesn't waver. "We're here for a meeting. Call your manager." The man blinks, taken aback by David's tone. "Our manager is very busy." "Then tell him his new boss is waiting." David cuts in, his voice sharp but calm. Gasps ripple through the lobby. The staff exchange confused looks, murmurs rising. Maya's heart pounds, but David doesn't flinch. At the far end of the lobby, the hotel manager appears. His smile fades the instant he sees them. "You two again. I thought I made it clear." David steps forward, stopping him mid-sentence. "Yes, you made it clear. Very clear. But it seems you are the one who doesn't understand." The manager scoffs, turning to the staff as if to dismiss them. "Escort them out now." But before anyone can move, David pulls a folder from under his arm. Thick, official papers slide onto the counter with a heavy thud. "Touch me, and you'll be escorting out the owners," David says, his eyes locking onto the managers. The staff freeze. Their smirks fade. One of them leans forward, eyes wide, scanning the first page. The bold letters of the title deed stare back. With David's signature written in fresh ink, Maya remains quiet, her chest tightening as the moment unfolds. She watches the very people who mocked her exchange nervous glances, their arrogance crumbling under the weight of the truth. Still, the manager tries to keep control. This is some kind of joke. Ownership doesn't change hands like this. David steps closer, lowering his voice so only the manager hears, but everyone feels the weight of it. Call the owners, go ahead. Ask them who signed the papers. Ask them who wired the money. I'll wait. The manager's face pales. His confidence falters. He doesn't reach for the phone. In the silence, the sound of Maya's heartbeat seems to echo. For the first time, she isn't the one shrinking under their stares. She isn't the one apologizing or explaining. She stands beside David, watching as the balance of power shifts before their very eyes. The guests lounging nearby whisper louder now. Did he say boss? Wait, does he own this place? Their laughter turns to unease. David finally straightens, reclaiming the papers. We'll have a formal announcement soon enough. But until then, everyone in this building should know one thing. His voice cuts through the tension, each word deliberate. The days of disrespecting my wife are over. The lobby goes silent. Not a single laugh, not a single smirk. Just wide eyes and tight throats. David places a gentle hand on Maya's back, guiding her toward the elevators. With every step they take, whispers follow, but no one dares stop them. The manager remains frozen behind the desk, his power slipping through his fingers like sand, and as the elevator doors close, Maya looks up at David, her voice barely a whisper. They don't even know what's coming, do they? David meets her eyes, his calm expression laced with fire. Not yet, but they will. The lobby was alive with chatter, clinking glasses, and the casual arrogance of wealth. A place where appearances mattered more than kindness, and whispers traveled faster than truth. But suddenly, everything grew still. David stood at the center of the marble floor, his hand resting lightly on Maya's shoulder. His presence was calm, but commanding. The kind that drew every eye without him needing to say a word. A hush spread through the room. Staff froze midst. Guests leaned in, sensing something extraordinary was about to unfold. David's voice broke the silence. Firm, steady, every word carrying weight. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The crowd shifted, uneasy. Some rolled their eyes, muttering under their breath, still seeing him as nothing more than the husband of that waitress. But curiosity tugged at them, forcing them to stay. Maya's heart pounded. She remembered too clearly the humiliation, the laughter, the sneers. Now, standing beside her husband, she could almost taste the tension thickening in the air. David pulled a folded set of papers from his suit jacket. He raised them high, his gaze sweeping the room. For too long, this place has been run without honor. But as of this morning, that changes. Effective immediately. He paused, letting silence drag long enough for doubt to twist in the minds of those who had once mocked him. This hotel belongs to me. The words landed like thunder. Gasps echoed through the hall. A wineglass slipped from someone's hand, shattering against the polished floor. Jaws dropped in disbelief. A man near the bar scoffed, shaking his head. That's impossible. David turned his eyes toward him, steady, unshaken. You'll find the contracts have already been signed. The deal finalized. You are standing in my hotel. Whispers erupted sharp, frantic. Staff exchanged glances. Guests stammered, trying to make sense of what they'd just heard. The same manager who once sneered at Maya stepped forward, his face pale. Why, you're saying, you bought this place? David's reply cut through the chaos. No. He stepped closer, his voice low and deliberate. I own it. The lobby fell silent again. No one dared to breathe too loudly. David shifted his gaze, no longer at the guests or the staff but at Maya. His expression softened, pride and tenderness shining through. He took her hand. This is my wife, Maya, and let me make this very clear. He turned slowly, addressing the room once more. No one, no guest, no manager, no staff will ever disrespect her in these walls again. Maya's throat tightened. For a moment, she could only blink back tears. The same floor where she had once been humiliated now felt like a stage for her redemption. A woman in the corner whispered to her friend, "She's just a waitress." David heard. He faced them, his jaw tightening. "She's more than that. She is the reason I bought this hotel. Her dignity means more to me than every dollar in my account, and anyone who cannot respect her has no place here." The weight of his words pressed down on the room. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others shifted uncomfortably, confronted by the mirror of their own cruelty. The arrogant guests who once laughed at Maya's expense now stood powerless, exposed. Their pride dissolved into silence. David lifted the papers again, handing them to the trembling manager. "You'll find everything in order. From this moment, all operations answer to me." The manager's hands shook as he skimmed the documents. He swallowed hard, then nodded. It's true. He owns it. He's the new owner." The declaration rippled through the crowd like fire. Reality set in every sneer, every insult, every act of humiliation was now a stain they could not erase. Maya took a breath, steadying herself. She looked around, meeting the eyes of those who once mocked her. She no longer felt small. She no longer felt powerless. David squeezed her hand, his final words echoing through the grand lobby. Remember this moment, because kindness is free, but cruelty. He let the silence stretch, the weight of his gaze locking onto the guilty. Cruelty comes at a cost. No one dared to answer. No one dared to move. For the first time, Maya felt what true justice sounded like, not in revenge, but in respect restored. And, as the stunned silence lingered, she knew this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one where everything had changed. Forever, the lobby was quieter now. The whispers of disbelief had given way to stunned attention, the kind that follows a moment no one can forget. Every eye in the room was fixed on David as he stood tall beside Maya, his presence radiating authority and finality. He cleared his throat, his voice steady, commanding, not just heard, but felt. This hotel is no longer a place where cruelty goes unchecked. The staff shifted uncomfortably, knowing they were no longer the ones in control. The arrogant guests who had once mocked Maya now realized the gravity of the moment. Their smiles faltered, their confidence evaporated. David raised a hand, holding up the signed staff termination notices. Every employee who laughed at disrespect, who allowed harassment, or who turned a blind eye, is no longer employed here. Gasps echoed through the room. Faces paled. One manager stammered, "But we've been working here for years." David's gaze didn't waver. Years of employment do not excuse years of abuse. You will leave immediately, and you will never return. The staff shuffled out, their arrogance replaced with shame. Heads hung low. Whispers of apology were swallowed by the weight of accountability. Then David turned his attention to the guests. Those who had once laughed as Maya was shoved into the pool. Their expressions shifted from confusion to panic as he continued. As for the guests who humiliated Maya, effective immediately, you are banned from this hotel for life. Any attempt to enter will be treated as trespassing. A woman tried to protest, her voice trembling. "Wait, this is ridiculous." "We didn't," David interrupted, his tone cold, deliberate. "You did, and this is the consequence. Respect is not optional in this building. You laughed, you mocked, you humiliated, and now, you leave with nothing but the shame you deserve." Maya watched as the once proud guests were escorted to the lobby doors. Their smirks were gone, replaced by guilt, disbelief, and fear. For the first time, they understood the weight of their actions. Maya's heart swelled as she looked up at David. Her hands, once trembling in humiliation, were steady now. She felt strength coursing through her veins, a power born from being seen, respected, and finally defended. David stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. "Maya, no one will ever treat you this way again. Not here, not anywhere. You are respected, and you are safe." Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of release. The shame of that day, the laughter, the endless humiliation, all dissipated under the weight of justice. She raised her chin, standing taller than she ever had before. The lobby that once watched her shrink in fear now bore witness to her triumph. The same place that had humiliated her had become the stage for her victory. The staff who remained, those who had shown kindness and professionalism, stepped forward. Their expressions were cautious at first, then hopeful. Maya's presence, once overlooked, now commanded respect. David addressed them one final time. "This hotel will operate on dignity, respect, and fairness. Anyone who cannot uphold those values will not remain here. Understand?" Nods filled the room. Commitment replaced fear. For the first time, the hotel felt like a place where humanity mattered more than wealth or entitlement. Maya exhaled slowly, letting the tension leave her body. She looked around at the lobby, at the staff, at the empty spaces where the cruel had once stood. She felt the power of standing beside a partner who believed in justice, and who had acted decisively to ensure it. David squeezed her hand gently. "This is just the beginning, Maya. Together, we will make sure no one ever forgets that respect is not optional." And for the first time since the cruel laughter by the pool, Maya smiled fully, knowing the tables had turned. Humiliation had been replaced by dignity. Pain had been replaced by triumph. And those who had mocked her now faced the undeniable weight of justice. The hotel, once a symbol of oppression, had become a monument to respect and to the power of standing up for what is right.